Welcome to One Sharp Sword, cutting through to what matters most. I'm your host, Dr. B, Dr. Wayne Pernell, the exponential success coach. Today, let's talk about how to sell more without selling. And rather, you do that by being more authentic and recognizing that sales isn't about pushing something on someone, but actually about helping the other person solve a problem for them. We enter the world of collaboration. Today, I have with me master collaborator. I don't know if you've ever been called that. Master collaborator Peter Anthony. And we're about to explore the magic of collaboration. Collabradabra, Peter. Welcome to One Sharp Sword.
Good morning, Doc.
Yeah, well, is it morning? It's way afternoon.
It's morning for me. It's 8 a.m. in the morning. I'm in Sydney, Australia.
Very good.
So
well, as we record this, it's 3 p.m. California time. It would be 6 p.m. Eastern time. So good morning to you. Hello, wherever you are as you listen to this. Peter is an expert in collaboration and helps people do so much more by being authentic through collaboration. And I wanted to have this conversation. So you didn't wake up one morning, Peter, and go, I know I'm going to help people sell, and I'm going to do it by teaching them how to just be me, or be themselves. So let's talk a little bit about how'd you get your start? What was the process you went through to create kind of you have this book, Collabradabra, that I want to talk about as well. So talk a little bit about your journey, because I think that's part of what's fun it's fun for me as the host, but it's also, I think, a little bit fun for our audience as well. So talk a little bit about how'd you get to do what you're doing?
That's a great question. It started, like most things, by attempting to do the opposite.
Don't you love that? Isn't that great? See, that's part of why I enjoy these kinds of conversations. It's because it just normalizes who we are as humans. It's like, I'm meant to go this way, and look what I landed. It's like, that's awesome. So
yeah, I meant to go to Mars, ended up on Venus. I did a college degree, like a lot of people coming out of college. I joined IBM on a marketing and sales cadetship, and then they gave us a year of sales training, Doc. They spent a year. They gave us a senior account manager to work with, and they gave us a year of sales training. And what I found was one of the reasons I got employed, and one of the reasons why I got on well with my senior mentor, was that quite naturally I was really inquisitive and really curious about how businesses worked. And I'd meet clients, and I'd be really curious about how a factory worked, or how a consulting firm worked, or how an engineering firm worked. And I'd be asking lots of questions, and I'd be genuinely interested in the outcomes. And I sold quite a lot relatively young. But what I found was the more of the sales training I took, the less I sold. And I became a bit of a problem child in IBM, because they didn't like then people not fitting the mold. Because I was a successful salesperson, and I was doing the opposite of what I was being taught. And they thought I was doing this deliberately, like I was some Tom Cruise maverick flying a jet around mountains. But I wasn't doing it to be a maverick. I was doing it because it worked, and because I was genuinely interested in people. So that's where it started. That's where it began.
So they couldn't afford to let you go because you were being successful, and they couldn't rein you in because, again, what you were doing was working. So
yeah, it was working. And in that generation of IBM, it was very much cookie cutter selling. It was very much here's the questions to ask, here's how to build rapport, here's how to ask questions, here's how to close sales. And it was very much follow the process. And what I found was the opposite was working. I didn't really know why the opposite was working. I knew I was genuinely curious about people, and I still am. I love particularly people that are very different than me. I'm very curious about what makes them think and what makes them tick, and I'm very curious about how businesses work and how businesses make money. And when I meet a client, I'm just curious about what works. And that was the curiosity was the beginning of the journey for me, because initially I was introverted, Doc, and I still am to a large extent. I still would rather be alone than be with people, funnily enough, being in my role. And it was my mother that coaxed me out of my bedroom to talk to my relatives when I was a little kid. And I found rather than talk to my relatives, if I just ask them questions, they do the talking. And that was also part of I guess, one of the threads that I learned about. And rather than talking, I just ask questions and be interested in listening to the answers. If it makes sense, Doc?
It totally makes sense. And it's a really great way of being with other people. And I loved how you just turned it back to me with a question, which was awesome. And you start to hear stuff like that as you engage with other people. You hear how they use questions, and you hear how people answer. And just to toss it back with another question, and that was very elegant, nicely done.
Yeah, it's like how I talk to my children. I mean, I've got 5 children, Doc, and 2 of them really like understanding, hearing their own voices when they're talking, right? And I talk about conversations as being a game, and if it's always your turn, it's not really much fun playing with you. You know what I mean? Like if
that's a gem. That is a gem. If you think about conversations being a game, it's not much fun if the other person doesn't get a turn. Right? It's not much fun for the other person.
It's not much fun. It's not much fun, and you don't learn much. And what I've found is I've met some fascinating people, Doc. I was on a flight pre-COVID to the UK to do some work, and there was this lady sitting alongside me, and she was reading a book on exhuming human remains, digging up human remains. And I thought, I've got to ask her about this book, right? Like what she's this book, what she's into. And it turns out she was on her way to Central Europe, to between Bosnia and Serbia. She was a forensic archaeologist. She was part of a team that were digging up human remains to work out how these people were deceased and put a case to the War Crimes Tribunal for alleged war crimes for how these people were killed. And she'd written a book. Her name was Mia Koff. She wrote a book called The Bone Woman. And she was really interested in forensic archaeology. And I found that fascinating. I'm not a forensic archaeologist, but I find people's journeys fascinating. Like if I'm working with engineers and I'm working with a guy that's 50 years old and he's spent his entire life understanding how water traveled through pipe. That's his entire obsession. Ever since he was a kid, he loved how water traveled through pipes, did a PhD in water traveling through pipes, and now is a global expert on pipes and how water and liquids travel through pipes. I find that fascinating. I find that really interesting. So when I ask them questions, I'm not asking them as some part of contrived structure of open and closed questions. I'm asking because I'm genuinely interested. And if he's really into water going through pipes, guess what? He loves talking about water going through pipes. Right. If I'm interested in that, I'm going to build a good relationship with this guy.
Right? I love that. That's, I would challenge our listeners, our viewers to think about the next person you meet. What is it they're into? Is it someone who is delivering the mail? Is it somebody who is building something on a scaffold? Is it something who's stocking a shelf? Like, what makes their job or their life interesting? What part of their life do they love the most? It's it is one of the reasons that I do a podcast. I get to meet tons of people. I get to bring people with various backgrounds to my audience. Talk a little bit about what you do now, because it's not just meeting people. I mean, you're consulting, right? So
not meeting random people on aircraft. What I do now is I help organisations grow by helping them understand how to collaborate internally and externally. That's the core of what I'm doing. And I was sitting in an airport lounge one morning in Cairo. I was thinking about this idea of collaboration, and I thought, you know what? There's magic in collaboration. I thought abracadabra, collaboration, Collabradabra. Hence, I wrote the book that you talked about earlier, The Magic of Collaborative Conversations. And I'm on a mission, Doc, to help people understand, like, from a cultural point of view, from a team's perspective, and even like a sales perspective, if I can use that word, that you will get demonstrably better outcomes. You'll get them bigger and faster when you turn traditional selling on its head. If you think about everything you've learned or heard about selling, if you do the opposite, it's much more likely to work.
I want to go down that avenue. I want to.
Sure.
I think that's really important. Here's what attracted me about bringing you on the show. Right, I get a chance to read a little bit about you and find out tidbits here and there, and it's like, do I want to bring you? Do I not want to bring you? And I've said no to multiple people, and I've said yes to multiple people for various reasons. I said yes to you because just in my consulting, one of the most absurd things I came across was a leader, and I talked with him about collaboration with internal divisions. And his response was a forehead slapper. It was like, you've got to be kidding me. I go, look, you are in a position where you could get more done by collaborating with this division or that division. And his response was, we'd collaborate just fine. If they would do things our way, we'd be collaborating absolutely fine. And he was serious. And it was like, oh, well, do I have to define what collaboration is? Like, if they do things our way, we'd be collaborating. And it was one of those, like
if only they started doing things my way, we could have a great collaboration. The interesting thing, Doc, is I've met many people like that. I've met many people, like the old school leaders. Because I do a lot of work in the engineering space. Mm. I find in engineering and in industrial areas, there's a lot of older school leaders. Now, the thing is, I can actually, what I like about it is we can bring them into a workshop, and we can run activities in teams. And one of the activities we run is we say, okay, we get him and his colleagues and the other group and their colleagues. We say, okay, you've been involved in a plane crash. There's been an aircraft accident. You've all survived. There's 10 of you there. Say there's 10 on the team. And here's the items that have been left that you've got, everything from a gun to a bottle of whiskey to a plastic raincoat. And you get individually, each person gets to individually rank those items from like 1 to 10 in terms of what's most useful in terms of survival. And we record that down. Then we get the team to make a decision, right? The team to rank those 10 things
as a group. So ranking it individually, I know this exercise.
And rank it individually and rank it as a group.
Yeah, I've done several of these. I love it.
Yeah,
individually, you're like, I think this, and then as a group, you have to decide and come up with a score.
You have to decide. Exactly. And what it does is it elicits what's called the wisdom of the crowd, which was popularized by James Jarecki, went back to Francis Galton back in 1906. When Galton, there was a fate, and there was an fattened ox up on display, and the fairgoers could guess how much the ox weighed, and the most accurate guess got the ox. Now, the most accurate guess at that fair came within 100 pounds of the correct weight. What Galton did was he collected all the tickets, he averaged all the guesses, and the average guesses came within 1 pound of the correct weight, which was the beginning of this wisdom of the crowd idea that a well-formed team makes a smarter decision than its smartest member. Now, in most things, like, say, athletics, if you go to the 100 metres race at the Olympics, the average won't be excellent. The average would be much lower than the winning speed. But in terms of decision-making, it turns out the average, or the wisdom of the crowd, is smarter than its smartest member. Now, you run these exercises, and people like your colleague that says, if only they did it my way, he looks at that and says, you know what, I've got shareholders, I've got profitability, I've got money that I would like to make in this business. I am much better off collaborating, because then my business will make smarter decisions. And there's a lot of work around client relationships and customer relationships. And if you collaborate, you understand who your ideal clients and customers are and understand how to collaborate with them, Wharton Business School says you'll get more profitable sales growth than if you sell to them. There's a lot of good science behind this. So I can claim it. I can say, yep, it's not about being nice. It's not about, like, I'm going to give you a big cuddle and a hug, Doc, because I really like you. I'm going to collaborate. No, it's not that at all. It's just smart business.
I would take the cuddle and hug as well. So
I'll give you a virtual hug.
Thank you so much. My question is, given we both run these exercises, and I know that you've run into the same issues that I have in doing this, in that while you want group participation, when it comes to the wisdom of the crowd, those who are slightly introverted, those who are more shy than introverted, because they're not the same, those who don't feel like they have a position of power and therefore won't speak up, they often have wisdom, but they won't share it in the group setting at the time of the discussion. How do you encourage those that are withholding for whatever reason to actually participate, to actually share? How do you encourage that in a group setting, and how do you teach leaders to draw that out? Because that is a huge skill that, whether you're running the family or you're running a PTA, right, parent-teacher association, or whether you're, a member of a corporate organization, your voice matters. So how do you draw out the voices of those that aren't readily participating?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you're absolutely right. The introverts tend to not speak up in groups, and introverts also have fewer, deeper relationships. So they're less likely to speak up in that environment. And one of the things I encourage with leaders or people like senior decision makers in organizations is to have more conversations, in the business. And in fact, it quite often, when I look at someone's psychometrics, we use a tool called Lumina, which measures things like intimacy, which is your conversation level, like your level of collaboration, like your level of empathy. And I'll often find those leaders, those very outcome-driven leaders that we're talking about, tend to have very low levels of intimacy, which means they have very few one-on-one conversations. And I encourage them. I'll say, look, spend a week, count the number of conversations that you have each day. And then at the end of the week, your average might be, say, 5 or 6. I'd say just for a month, try increasing that by 50%. Have 50% more conversations for the next month, and just see what happens. And what you'll find is you'll get more of the wisdom from the introverts, because you're right. And they're often also the people that study things more closely, that reflect more and study. So if you're looking for a technical solution to a problem, you're more likely to find it from an introvert than an extrovert. and they'll have the answer, and they will like the fact that you've taken the time to invest in a conversation with them, and they will take that very seriously. That is key for the introverts, and one of the reasons the book is on collaborative conversations is I believe collaboration begins with a conversation. It's the most important relationships we have are the ones we have one-on-one. Like we have our romantic relationships, we have our friendships, we have our business relationships. To me, the most important ones are the ones we have with, like, firstly with ourselves, like how well do you collaborate with yourself, if I can use that expression, like how well aligned are you? Then it's like your romantic relationships, your friendships, your business relationships. And what I've found, Doc, is the quality of your relationships is the quality of your conversations.
Agreed.
You want high quality conversations. You want high quality relationships, have high quality conversations. Even people like John Gottman has found that in terms of romantic relationships. And what we found in business relationships, it's the same. The quality of the business relationship is the quality of the conversation. I'm sure you find that in podcasting too. The quality of the podcast is the quality of the conversation.
Indeed. I actually, in my business life as well, and personal life, when I meet new people, when I'm at a networking event or when I'm introduced to somebody new, I will absolutely never, ever start with the weather. And I will very, very seldom start with, what do you do?
Yeah.
Those are the easy go-to. Wow, it's been so cold lately and finally warming up. Okay. But that doesn't get you anywhere. It's a nice icebreaker, maybe. What if you started with, something a little more substantial, like, hey, what was the best part of your day today? Without ever knowing anything about that person, just start with that.
Yeah. Or if you saw a presentation, you might say, what did you enjoy most about what Mary was saying or what Catherine was sharing or whatever that might be, and attempt to get it a bit deeper, because they're likely to be very smart and very focused and fairly driven if they're at an event like that. I don't tend to like networking events per se. I find them to be full of salesmen looking for my business card and wanting to sell me a photocopier. Nothing against photocopiers.
That's awesome.
Nothing against photocopiers. I had a lady recently attempting to sell me a photocopier at a networking event. And she actually, you'll love this, she actually had the photocopier in her car. She wanted me to come out to the car park and see a demonstration of the photocopier. I thought, okay.
That's awesome. How about a vacuum?
You are bigger than the life you are leading. It really is time to attend to that thing you've wanted to do or have, but you've been putting off. It's time to step into that dream you've parked for someday. It's time to claim true well-being, both personally and professionally, without giving up the success that got you here. It's time to check out Dr. Pernell's signature small group retreat, the Exponential Success Summit. Explore exponentialsuccesssummit.com. Seats are extremely limited, as this is a very special small group event. www.exponentialsuccesssummit.com.
Yeah, so I think it's all about the conversation, and it's all about understanding how to have that conversation with a collaborative intent. And to me, it's the first building block. Once you get that part right, you can then build the team, you can build the culture, and you can also build like client relationships too. Like look at understanding how to collaborate with your best customers, and quite regularly for my clients, I am running like facilitated meetings with their biggest clients, saying things like, how do we make this relationship more ideal for you? This is to their client. And looking at bringing both parties together. because the clients want success as much as the providing organization does. So it works on that level too.
In my world of exponential success as a brand is founded on 3 V's, which starts with values, vision, and vitality.
Yep.
And what, going back to something you said a couple minutes ago, which was the quality of your relationships is really based on or founded on the quality of your conversations.
Yes.
If you have a values-based conversation, and it doesn't have to be, hey, my values are these, but really, talking about what matters to you and finding out about what matters to the other person, you're going to be able to come to a place of having a vision of the same thing. We are both headed in this direction if our values align. And you use the word alignment early on. And this is true whether you're in a couple, right? As couples, what do we both want from our relationship? And it's one of those things that I highly recommend couples to do, to have that conversation. What do we want? What kind of life are we building? And it's interesting. I actually got into consulting almost 40 years ago when, in doing couples work, the gentleman, the man, called me and he said, "Thank you for doing what you did with me and my wife." And I'm like, "You're welcome." He goes, "But I'm calling because I need you to do that thing that you did." And I'm like, "That thing I did?" He goes, "That thing you did with me and my wife, can you do that with me and my vice president?" And I hadn't realized that he was really the president of a big, big company in South San Francisco. And I started going to the company and doing essentially communication work, which was values-based. What do you value? Well, what do you value? Are you on the same page? What do you value for the company? What do you value for the company? Are you on the same page? Are you headed in that direction? And that's, for me, that was really the process of getting to a collaborative place and working agreements. What happens when you disagree? How do you agree that you're going to talk about the disagreements?
Well, you've got to work out. Why you're disagreeing. I guess I'm on exactly the same page, Doc. When I talk about building collaborative relationships, we talk about, like, if I'm potentially collaborating with you, I'd be wanting to know, like, what your values are, like what's most important to you. And you'll probably give me 3 or 4 things. I'd like to know, like, what order
11.
and what's the most important, second most important, third most important. I'd like to know what they mean for you. Like, if you say to me, vitality is important to me, I'd say, well, Doc, what does vitality mean to you? I'm really curious because it's, usually when misunderstandings happen, it's when we use the same word for different meanings. Vitality for me means being cold. I love jumping in the ocean in the middle of winter and swimming a couple of kilometers near where I live. Every Friday morning, some friends and I spend 10 minutes in an ice bath because we love it. Now, vitality for me means being cold. I really like what Wim Hof has done with ice baths. So it's going to vary from person to person. And then I also want to know what you want to avoid the most. Like, Doc, when we're talking about vitality, what do you want to avoid the most? And
I want to avoid ice baths.
A lot of people do. And it's really interesting. Rather than looking for people like me, I find people that are different than me more interesting. I get more curious than people that are just like me. I get them. They're just like me. And people are different than me. I get really curious as to what led them on the journey to get to where they are. So I can understand those things. Then if I'm making a proposition to you, if I'm recommending something to you, I know what I'm recommending to. I know the set of values I'm recommending to. And if there's something about those I need to change, I might make a recommendation to that changes one of those values. It might change their order. I might introduce a new one to you. Like someone like me didn't grow up with AI. And right now I'm using AI. I love ChatGPT. I use ChatGPT almost every day to get insights and advice about a whole range of things. That's completely new to me. And a friend of mine introduced it to me. And now, and that's a great step forward. So if I stuck in my values my entire life, nothing would ever change.
True.
Nothing would ever change. So you can make, and then you can make recommendations to help people improve their lives. So that's crucial, and it's also part of the curiosity piece too.
Well, what you also said in there was that you value change.
Yes, yeah, I do, and I value change in me. Also value change in the people that I'm working with. I mean, in my coaching practice and my client practice, most of my clients I'm very close to. They're almost like friends because I'm really interested in helping them achieve their objectives. I really care, and they feel that I really care about them. I care about them and their business outcomes. And I'm really curious about helping them look at beneficial change in their lives. Because as you know, Doc, that's the best feeling in the world, to wake up in the morning and think, you know what, someone's life is better off as a result of my existence today. I mean, and that's what makes life worth living. I mean, then the money comes. I mean, the money follows that.
Yes.
The growth follows that intent, and people feel that. They feel like, yeah, this guy gives a shit. He cares.
Yeah.
And I actually do care.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to care about what you do. It really is. I wake up.
Well, it's ultimately people. I mean, no matter how big the company is, he can be president, she can be the vice president, whatever it is. Ultimately, she's a person, and she's a person who wants to be happy. She wants to be happy, and there's a part of her life where she's not happy. And if we can help her feel good by doing well commercially, fantastic. She gets her outcome. She gets to feel happy. I feel good when she feels. I think that was the old. Who was it? I think it was Zig Ziglar. You'll get everything you want when they get what they want.
You can help. You can get whatever you want when you help enough people get what they want.
Exactly. I love Zig.
And I'll see you at the top. Yeah, that was all.
And I'll see you at the top. That's right, Zig Ziglar. I remember Zig. I used to have his cassettes in my car when I was driving around to.
Now you are dating yourself.
I love Zig.
But me too. Cassettes in the car.
I love Zig. But it's true. It is true, and ultimately that's what collaboration's about. It's about being selfish, because I know I will get more of what I want in my life when you get more of what you want.
I really, it is very special if you can wake up. For me, I wake up and I am grateful, and I think about how am I going to serve greatly today. And it's kind of wonderful because it helps me approach my calendar so differently versus, oh, I've got to do this and I've got to do that and I've got this call and I've got that call. Oh, I have to do another podcast. It's like, no, I get to meet some amazing people today. Yeah, how cool is that?
And it's like changing one little letter, Doc. Rather than saying I've got to, you say I get to. Or rather than say I've got to do this podcast, it's like I get to do this podcast.
Yeah.
I get to meet the Doc and have a great conversation with him. Exactly. I get to do that. Oh, I've got to do it. I get to do that.
I get to.
It's really cool.
Exactly. It's a gift.
Yeah, I get to do that.
Exactly.
A little shift, like a little twist.
It's it is one of the little it's one of the little twisted areas of my life. Exactly. Talk a little bit about your book, because I want to help you kind of get it out there. So as people get Collabradabra, is that what it is?
Yeah. It is Collabradabra. Well, the book, there's two ways of doing it. One is the book, which is available wherever you want to buy books. Collabradabra. It rhymes with abracadabra. The second is I run regular virtual workshops on this on collaboration. So that is potentially something people could get involved on too. So they can contact me through your show, and they can inquire about attending a virtual workshop on this. And what they do is they bring their business problems or their business opportunities to the meeting or to the workshop. And we keep the groups pretty small, like 6 to 8 people, so we can have conversations about how it applies. And we look at real life collaborative outcomes for their particular business issues or their particular business problems.
Like an online virtual mastermind.
It is. Yeah, it's a masterclass. Yeah, we get like 6 people, maximum 8 together. And perhaps there's a group of listeners that might want to do that together. and we have it's usually for about 90 minutes, seems to work about right. And we go through the Collabradabra process, like the collaborative growth process. And as we look at each step, people say, well, how does that apply in my business? It could be anything from engineering to photocopiers to cars.
Sure.
It could be anything. It could be anything. Trains. It doesn't matter what it is. I've been doing it since 1998. So I've got the hang of it now.
I think so. Is there a framework you walk people through?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I walk them through a framework. It's a client-centric collaborative framework to grow the business. It starts with the culture, then the client relationships and the conversations, and it's terrific because other people, you know how to apply it to your business, plus you know how to apply it to other businesses too. So then you really understand how it works. And it's I love it. I love it. I get to help 6 people in, say, 90 minutes.
That's awesome.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. I would love to put the contact for that in the show notes, as well as for those listening and not going to the show notes. How do they find you?
They find me it's all one word, peteranthonyconsulting.com. You can find me there. Or I'm also collaboration guy. collaborationguy.com. You can find me there too. If you just type in collaborationguy.com, you'll find me, or you can find me in Peter Anthony Consulting. You'll find me in either.
Okay.
I like the collaboration
guy.
Yeah. I was on a podcast last year, and I said, "Oh, you're the collaboration guy. You should be called the collaboration guy." So I can be called the collaboration guy. So
that's awesome.
That set that up too. So, I'd love to do that if that's possible, Doc.
Yeah,
you guys. That's what I love doing.
That's great. Yeah, it's sort of like a puzzle, right? It's
it is.
And then people share and they learn from each other, and
they share and learn from each other, and you learn how it applies to your business. I had one recently, and she was running, of all things, a bridal service. She was like what would you call it? A high-end bridal service. There was another person who was building a podcast consulting business. I mean, it doesn't matter what the business is, engineering, because essentially it's all about people collaborating with people to achieve business outcomes.
It's great. I mean, if you think about even the stories you talked about, the people you met on planes, and the woman who was learning, or the expert in exhumation, right? Digging up bodies. It's like, there's collaboration there. There's got to be collaboration there.
Yeah. And she's collaborating with her colleagues to put together a case to a war crimes tribunal. There are a whole range of different levels of expertise involved in doing that.
So I have this kind of concept that I call the golden plunger. It's sort of like, if we're involved in an ego struggle, you and me, well, I want this, well, I want that, well, I want this, well, I want that, then it's sort of this tug of war, and it creates all this muck. But if we are focused on what is the common outcome that we both want, then it becomes this kind of triangle that is above us. And if you add a stick, it's like, it pulls you straight up. If you focus on what is it we both want versus you, me, it's like we both want a certain outcome, and it's probably not too dissimilar. I want it my way. Well, I want it my way. It's like, well, what are we both working for? I saw this big time way back, again, 40 years ago, when I was doing couples work, and it was like, couples that were separating. Well, grr, you suck. Well, grr, you suck more. And it was kind of mudslinging, which is where it gets mucky. And then it's like, well, what are you both after? Well, we want the best for the children. Awesome. Then let's focus on the children. And what does creating an environment for them look like, where you can both stop the crap that is going on back and forth, And this happens in businesses too. So it's a great kind of analogy. And it's like, what is the positive outcome you're both after? And if you attach a stick to that, it becomes the golden plunger that pulls you both up out of the muck.
Yeah, exactly. And you're both, if you're in a buyer seller relationship, you're both better off. The buying organization and the selling organization are both better off when they collaborate. It's a matter of, well, how do we go about doing that?
Exactly.
How do we build that collaborative relationship? And that's where the profitable growth happens for the selling organization, and the real outcomes happen for the buying organization. And it's true across like engineering and retail, any industry you can think of. Even defence. I was working on a project recently where there was our local defence force spends $1 billion a year on defence infrastructure. And we're working with them, helping them to collaborate with engineering firms so that they could provide better military and armed forces engineering solutions for the defence forces. So even at that level, it's the collaboration piece works, because up until then it was all a matter of, well, they're the military, we're the providers, and it was very much an us and them sort of like not a fight, but like a buyer-seller relationship, and
Yes.
and ultimately, it's the outcome is a safer country. So there, as you say, at the top of that stick, there's ultimately a better outcome.
Yes.
That we both share.
If you think about it in terms of in tribe and out tribe, and it's like, well, you're not really one of us. The truth is, you expand your circle, and they expand their circle. Now we've got a bigger us, right? It's like
you've got a bigger us, and often, I mean, there's a company just a couple of doors down from my office that sells it's conveyor belt monitoring. You'd love this. You'd love this, Doc. A conveyor belt monitoring business, right? And I said, look, I met the guys. I said, I'm really curious about conveyor belt monitoring, right? And all these guys do is they monitor conveyor belts, but they monitor them for some of the biggest companies in the world. And all they're interested in is conveyor belts. So guess what? If you need a new conveyor belt, say you're Amazon, a new conveyor belt in your warehouse, you've got no idea about conveyor belts. You need these guys that only are interested in conveyor belts and conveyor belt monitoring. So when you collaborate, you're both going to be better off. The conveyor belt monitoring organization gets a nice big new client, and Amazon gets to understand how to work conveyor belts and conveyor belt monitoring better in Amazon to provide better service to their customers. I mean, they both win.
It is a win. Who thinks you don't wake up one day and go, I think I'm going to start a conveyor belt monitoring company. That came from the desire to solve a problem.
Exactly.
And that's huge.
And ultimately, it's people like you and me. If we happen to be Amazon customers, it's ultimately us that win, because we get our products earlier and easier and cheaper and with less fuss because of guys like them. I mean, ultimately, this partnering, this collaboration, it works for both of you and the ultimate customer, or the customer of your clients. Then you think, exactly. Well, how do we go about doing that? Which is what I love working through.
Again, more puzzles. It's great. And you don't always see, it's sort of like the hidden components to making it work, right? You and I, we order something on Amazon or another big box store, and ta-da, it shows up at our door a day or so later. There's a lot of how in that. And all of the pieces of the how, like, we have faith that it'll just happen. All of the pieces of the how are collaborators with each step along the way. And, the first step or the second step doesn't have to collaborate with the eighth step. They have to collaborate, like the second step has to collaborate with the first and the third.
And ultimately, we're both after, if you're in a sales role, ultimately you're working for the customer of your customer.
Exactly.
like if it's Amazon, ultimately, if I'm working with Amazon, I'm ultimately working for the Amazon customer to give them a better experience. Or if I'm working for a big publishing company, like say I'm working for a news media organization. Ultimately, I'm helping people get better, more accurate news service, or better, more accurate information about what it is that they're most interested in. So we are working together to provide an outcome for something or somebody else. And once you start thinking that way, that's where the magic starts happening. And you believe, and you think optimistically. You think, yes, I'm thinking collaboratively. I'm thinking optimistically. I'm thinking, yeah, you know what? We can make great things happen. Not just we can, but we must, because thinking optimistically is going to help us both achieve better outcomes for people. And we're going to enjoy the process and have some nice trophies in the cabinet to say, hey, here's what I've done, or here's what we've achieved together. In our commercial relationship, it's a great way to feel.
It's a great process. It is a great way to feel. One of the things that polls year after year after year have shown, and it became hugely dramatic during the pandemic, was that what people, among the things that people really want from their jobs, is to know that what they're doing is valuable. Tell me that it's meaningful. And what you were talking about is keep the end user in mind. It's not about packaging the widget in a certain way. It's not about, can we get it in a box or whatever. It's, what is that thing that you've packaged? What's it going to do for the person who receives it?
Yeah.
And that's where it becomes meaningful.
It does. And it's funny you should mention that, because I was working with a huge, like a global packaged food organization who make a lot of chocolates, right? And they're feeling a bit depressed, and they sell one like globally recognized bar of chocolate, right? It's like in wafers. It's like you break off the wafers. And the way they thought about it, the way the leader of the group thought about it, was that, you know what, this is about people sharing an experience, because they did all their customer research and consumer research. And most people who bought this product, because it was quite expensive, it was like the top end of the range of chocolate, they bought it to share with somebody. So, hey, Doc, I brought over this product. Let's have it with a cup of coffee or a cup. I'm going to share it with you, like a little bit of a gift. So it was like they saw that as creating moments where you can celebrate together, or improving moments when you can. You're not just making and selling chocolate bars, but they're selling experiences between people. Like I might bring some to my mum at a nursing home. I might give some to my sister. I might share a block with you. And think, well, that's a great way of thinking. There's a goal above and beyond the physical delivery of whatever the product is that we're making, or whatever we're selling. Yeah.
I think
I love that.
Yeah, truly. Putting yourself in the experience of the end user is huge. And the fact that anybody that works around chocolate could be depressed, I mean, what's up? They've got phenylethylamines all over the place. That is the love enzyme. So, let's go.
The problem I found working with them was I put on a lot of weight. I worked with them for about a year, and I put on a lot of, because every time I went to a meeting, there was like a whole jar, a bowl of these chocolates. And you would eat them like the latest variant of this particular bar. That was the
before
chunky variant.
Before you took the ice baths, I'm sure.
That's, I need the ice bath, or it wouldn't fit in the ice bath.
Exactly. That's great.
Crazy. So, and it all starts with the conversations, Doc. It all starts with the conversations. It all starts with understanding how to have one of those collaborative conversations, and build, be curious, be genuinely interested in creating something special with people, and they will come back to you, and the relationship will deepen. The outcomes will expand. For you, for the other organisation that you're working with, and ultimately for a cause that's bigger, like whether it's people just celebrating together. or enjoying an experience together. That's something worth pursuing. Get you up in the morning.
It's exactly right. That's the thing at the top of the triangle, right? Is it's not about you or me or how we get it done. It's about what is the end result for the end user, and let's talk about how to get there. It's that how question, with the understanding that we both want this particular outcome. That's great.
And
I start the podcast with that.
That's the magic, Doc. That's the magic.
That is the magic. That's awesome.
It's the magic because it just appears. It just, wow.
It's awesome. Yeah. Good. You know that one of my brands is the Magic of Dr. P. I don't know if you knew that, but
no, I didn't know that.
Magic of Dr. P LLC. I used to be a magician as a performing magician.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so there you go. That was the other reason that Collabradabra sort of appealed to me.
Oh, right. I did not know
kind
that.
of a personal level. It's like anybody that's going to play with magic. Because one of the values I have is I want there to be a sense of magic in pretty much everything I do. Like, wow, that was kind of cool. How, like, I want to see more of that. So I love the idea of collaboration. Collabradabra. I love that.
It's awesome. It's awesome too. I mean, I was running a workshop. I run them every week. I was running one last week, and there was a woman in the workshop who had one of those real aha moments where she thought, "Oh, now I get it." I love watching. I like watching them perform their magic, or them realizing their magical powers.
Definitely.
And that's when it's really cool. I think, wow, she understands the real power that she's got, the real magic she can create, and that's what's going to make her happy. It's beyond anything else.
It's exactly right. Yeah. That's where you and I become sort of the Wizard of Oz. We're behind the curtain going, you've really got the power, right? Dear, lion, you've got the courage already. Let me show you where you put it. And it's so great. It's so great.
And that's how it works. It takes a while to get there, though. Like I wasn't like back in IBM on day one. Think, oh yeah, this is like the Wizard of Oz and the Lion. I'm going to help him create magic. It wasn't like that.
No.
It was like a whole lot of things that didn't work, and then finally working out what does work.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
Wasn't it Einstein?
And back to what you said, it all starts with the conversation. So good.
It all starts with curiosity and conversations, and having a positive intent.
Singing my song. You're singing my song. It's so good.
I'm singing your song.
Yeah. I mean, it's right. Most people who know me know that Curious George is sort of my spirit animal.
Yeah. Yes.
He goes with me wherever I go just to keep me smiling and in the space of staying curious and being in the place of wonder. If you're in curiosity, you can't be in judgment. So that's a huge piece. That magic is, you make magic wherever you are. And that it's not about I'm so magical. It's about I'm on a journey, join me, and you'll find your magic on this journey. It's and the communication is gigantic. Communication counts. So, being able to share that and build it, that's part of the magic too. So
yeah. And I didn't realize how similar we thought.
It was, and isn't that great? Part of the unfolding. It's on one sharp.
It's very bizarre that like two guys in different parts of the world and with different experiences ultimately have the same experience. It's ultimately the same experience.
It's very interesting, and it's part of why I do a podcast is to be able to bring together people from around the world to show, look, as much as we're different, there are similarities that show up over and over and over again. And it is so important. That can be the basis of collaboration as well. That it's like we're different. Let's honor those differences. And we're also not that different. You know?
Yeah, and you know what? That used to really scare me, Doc, because I'm in little old Australia. We're tiny. We're only 20 million people, little country at the bottom of the world. I grew up watching like American movies and shows and English royal families, and I felt like we're tiny. And I started traveling to different parts of the world to run workshops, like firstly into Asia, places like Malaysia and Japan and China and South Korea, and then the UK. And when I first worked in the US, I was so nervous, right? I was working in New York, staying in a hotel, got up in the morning to go downstairs, had my breakfast. I thought, I'm going to open a workshop in New York. And I felt so tiny. I felt so little. I thought, wow, these guys are so much smarter, bigger, brighter. Like everything around me looked like a movie scene, like all the pavements and the steam coming out of the grills and the yellow cabs down the road. I felt so little. When I got in the room and I said, "No, good morning and welcome. I'm Peter Anthony. I'm your facilitator for the day." And they looked up at me and they started paying attention. I thought, wow, they're actually listening to me. They're actually listening to me.
Yeah.
And we had a great workshop. It took me quite a while to feel like I was good enough, or I was enough to be in their presence. And then I realized, hey, they're all the same. All these people I'm meeting in different parts of the world,
Isn't it great?
whether they're in London or New York or Cairo or Beijing, they're all the same people. That's what I worked out.
There's two things about this. They're all the same people, and nobody has what you have, which means you have and you are enough. And that's the message that I really want each of our audience members to get is people are people are people. Yes, they're different. Yes, they're divergent. That's awesome. Honor that. And because of that, you're different and divergent from who they are. That makes you enough.
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
It took me a little while to learn that, a little while to realize that I was enough. And also, like to your point, they're all the same. They're all the same. I'm meeting the same people in different cultures, in different countries with the same sorts of problems. So of course I can help them.
Exactly.
But it took me a little while to sort of to get that to get into that space.
See, I love that we're different, and I love that we have similar, like as humans, we have similar issues. It's great. It's right. And so because of that, back to you, we're able to collaborate, right?
Yes. We're able to collaborate, share ideas, and ideally come to some meaning and some conclusions that are useful for people that they get value from.
Very good. And speaking of conclusion, I'm going to say we're at that point. So should you as a listener or a viewer want more, find your way to Peter Anthony Consulting. And I will also have the collaboration guide, collaborationguide.com. Both of those go to the same place. I'll have that as a link in the show notes. Peter Anthony Consulting. I like that better because it's your name, right? Like,
yeah. Okay.
It's like,
well, it's both.
You can go to Dynamic Leader or you can go to WaynePernell.com. They both go to the same place. But
you know what? Because you and I both take the Blues Brothers motto when they went to Bob's Country Bunker.
Rubber
said,
Biscuit.
"What sort of music do you play?" We play country and western.
That's hilarious. There you go.
We play both types of music. We play country music and western music. See,
that's awesome. And on that note, I will say, Peter Anthony, thank you so much for being here. It's been really fun. It's been really fun. Thank you. All righty. This is One Sharp Sword, cutting through to what matters most. My guest today was Peter Anthony. You can find him at Peter Anthony Consulting. We talked about collaboration and so much more. I am your host, Dr. P, Dr. Wayne Pernell, the Exponential Success Coach. We'll see you here next time. Thanks for joining us.